All right, welcome back, everyone. We are in part seven. We're almost done of our book, Nine Common Lies Christians Believe, and we've been moving through this thing pretty quick. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody can remember any of the other ones we talked about before this?
God will not give you more than you can bear.
There you go.
God has gained another angel. Doesn't God want me to be happy? I could never forgive that person.
Right.
Just follow your heart. And does God even care?
All right. Way to go, Sister Green. Gold star for you. All right, so we're in part seven. Like I said, I hope you guys had a good week, Bible study last week in my absence. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, today we'll be focusing on blank will never change. And we're mostly talking about people. You can put whoever you want to put there. Bob, Rick, me will never change. I don't know about you, but if I don't know if you've ever encountered people, you just looked at them and said that they ain't never gonna change. Somebody might have said that about you. Never going to change. And so that's what we're talking about today. This is something that is so though we know God can change people, sometimes I don't think we always believe it, because we give people passes on foolishness sometimes. So here's what I mean. I've been pastoring for a little while now, and I don't know how many times I've heard people say, oh, that's just sister so-and-so, she's always like that. Or that's just brother so-and-so, he's always like that. As if the ability, possibility, or availability for them to change is not possible. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Because when we say that, what we're verbalizing is either that God can't do it, or in some ways we're verbalizing that, but in other ways, what we should be trying to get to is we need to trust and believe that God can do it. God can change anyone. Some of us are probably living testimonies that God can change anyone. Amen. And so that's what we focus on today. This one might be pretty short, even in the book. When looking at the information they provided, it wasn't a long chapter, but we're gonna go through it and we're gonna do what we gotta do. All right. Who are some people do you believe will never change? I threw out some suggestions. Anybody? You don't have to name specific people, but is there anybody you thought of like that? They are never gonna change. And you could be right. You know, let's be honest, there are some times where certain people don't ever change.
You know, that's a hard question for me. That's a hard question for me because a long time back, I started operating from the point of view, as long as a person has breath in their body, that they are a candidate for a miracle, a candidate for a change. And when I look at all of the evidence, why would God want to do it? I don't want God to do it because I got a grudge against him. But then if it's a loved one, then I want God to do it.
I'm glad you went there. I'm glad that you trekked down that path, because that's kind of the weird. That's kind of where we're at a lot of times. That's why I said, who are some people you believe will never change, or believed? Maybe they did change. Because one of the things that's rough about change is that, like you said, if you hold a grudge against somebody, it's hard for you to see the Lord blessing them. You're like, Lord, now these jokers is, we don't know the change. We might not know to see the change happening right away. And then you're like, shaking your fist at the Lord, like, come on now, get it together. But and then the other thing about change is usually the change begins, as most of those of us have gone through it, the change begins on the inside, and it takes a while before others start to notice the change, right? It takes a while before they start to see that it's, you're that person's not that person anymore.
I preached that Sunday. It's a process.
It's a process, right? It's a process. That's why I quote him all the time. Presiding Elder James Reddick, he used to tell you all the time, it takes time to be holy.
Hey, I forgot about that. I would have had that in my message Sunday.
It was his favorite. He used to, so I heard everybody else quote it, then I heard him say it himself, but he used to say it all the time. It takes time to be holy. Because it's a process. It's something that doesn't happen like overnight. Anybody else want to jump in? I don't want to rush nobody off.
I was kind of thinking when we looked at that, and two things came to my mind. First of all, we know that God can change a person, but the key is the person's got to want to be changed. He's got to allow him to do that.
Right. And I think that's the part too that's hard to wrestle with.
Yeah.
Because we do know God has the ability, because we've seen it. We know he's available to do it. But you ever see somebody and say, God can change all of that? Why won't you let him do it? Right?
Yeah.
Almost like seeing somebody ride down the street with a dirty windshield, and you're like, you're gonna crash and kill yourself. Like, let somebody help you clean the windshield. No, I got it. They trying to use these old raggedy windshield wipers. They ain't working. You got like, let someone help you. But that's kind of, that's kind of how it is in life, right? No matter what we do, we forget that we leave out the part. I think one of the challenges we have in church is we forget our part in the process. If you get what I'm saying, we forget that we have to be a part of the process of our own change. And sometimes the very first step is just that want to, want to. I've known people, I've heard stories of one of my family members who had a drinking issue. And they said, I don't care how many times you send me to rehab, I'm not going to change unless I choose to. Which is true, right?
Very much so.
I'm not going to change until I make and the same thing with our spiritual growth. We're not going to change unless we make the conscious decision to change, right?
Yep.
And so go ahead.
I was told that I was afraid of changes.
Who told you? You know what? Change is, so what's weird about change, it's the only thing that constant, and it's the one thing a lot of us fear. It can be small stuff. Like, you ever go to the grocery store and move stuff around? Does that make you mad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
On a different aisle.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been on aisle 6 the last 12 times I come in here. Now it's on aisle 15. I don't like that. And so I've noticed that even about myself. I don't like when things. Give you an example. I'm driving in Seattle. I'm in the neighborhood that this neighborhood in Seattle called Capitol Hill. This is where I attended school. I used to live over there. Like, I know this neighborhood well. And I'm driving and all these roads, all these streets are closed off. I'm like, for what? And then I did a street that I normally could just turn left on. They're talking about right turn only. I said, when did this happen? I don't like this. Right? Makes no sense. Streets that were 2 lanes are now 1 way. I'm like, what? When did this happen? Right? And so it's interesting seeing the city that I was familiar with for so long change so much in the time I've been gone, right? There was I don't know if y'all, Reverend Williams, you might know about this. They probably got them here in Texas. Y'all know the grocery store that have better food than some of the restaurants? Usually,
yes. Dealers in the grocery store.
Right. So there's a grocery store in Seattle called the Red Apple. And they had the best fried catfish. You can get collard greens, all that up in there. It was bang. They tore that down, and now it's an Amazon Fresh. Which was interesting though. At the Amazon Fresh, so they got these special grocery carts, right? You put the stuff in the cart. It has a little screen on the front of it. It tallies up everything you put in there. And once you get ready to check out, you just hit a button, it charges your credit card, you bag your groceries up and leave. I was like, it was pretty high tech. I was like, man, they living in 2020, 2027 over here. But it was just interesting, you know. So change is interesting, right? There's change that's positive, right? There's change that's good, right? We're glad some stuff has changed, right? We're glad stuff has changed. But then also change is also kind of hard because we like the familiar, right? We like stuff to be the way we remember them. So even with ourselves, I don't know about you, but the hardest part about change for me personally was, am I going to stop being me now that I'm going this Christian path? If that makes any sense, right? Especially get called into ministry. Am I going to stop being Philmont? You know, I've seen people transform, I hate to say it that way, when they become preachers. And I was like, is that going to happen to me? Am I going to still be the same guy I thought I was? Or am I going to be, you know, walk around here, not knowing how to talk to people normally? You know, talking in preacher talk. God bless you, my brother. Man of God, you're doing powerful things. You know, I was worried about that. You know, can I be Christian and still be Philmont? Or are those two things not mutually exclusive? You hear what I'm saying? I don't know if anybody understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Am I going to lose a part of myself? And you do, but it's not the stuff that you look back on and realize the stuff that I lost was stuff I probably needed to lose anyway. I didn't lose anything that was that stopped me from being me. All right. Is change possible? Well, we've already answered that question, but let's look at some examples. Somebody grab John 4, 27 through 30.
Okay.
This is probably one of my more favorite.
I got that. John 4, 27 through 30. And it reads, and upon this came his disciples and marveled that he talked with the woman, yet no man said, what seekest thou, or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot and went her own way into the city and said to the men, come see a man which told me all things that I ever did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city and came unto him.
So look, if you know, this is John's story. It's the woman at the well. Most of us know this story pretty well. No pun intended. But this lady was at the well in the middle of the day getting water. Now, there's some debate as to why she was at the well. There's some scholars who say she was there because she was hiding, because she didn't want to, you know, she had some issues going on. She didn't want to deal with that. Other people said it could have simply been she just lived close to the well and just, you know, she ran out of water. Let me just run to the well real quick and get some more. But either way, she comes to this well, she meets Jesus, and she go run and talks to people that I'm sure was talking about her, right? I'm sure she wasn't really trying to engage with this folk because her lifestyle that she was living at the time wasn't the best, right? Jesus asked her about all her husbands, right? So even if she had 7 husbands and they all died, like they died consecutive, you know, back to back, she probably been looked at as a black widow, you know, like who want to marry this girl? Every time somebody married, they end up falling dead, right? It could have been that. It could have been, you know, she looked down upon because she, you know, didn't have, you know, wasn't stable with anybody. We don't know, right? But we do know the same woman who looked like who possibly could have been avoiding people is now going to tell people, come see a man. Look what she says, who knew everything that I did, which implies that not everything was right. There's some, you know, it didn't say that, but you know, you say, ooh, that person told everything that I did, good or bad.
The good and the bad.
Right. That means they told the whole story, right? So she was willing to go through. But she was willing to go talk to these people and be an early evangelist of the Christ. All right, let's look at Zacchaeus and Luke 19, 1-8. Who has that?
I have it.
All right.
Jesus, Jesus went into Jericho and was passing through. There was a chief tax. Oh, my phone dropped. Oh, was a chief tax collector named Zacchaeus, who was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was a little man and could not see Jesus because of the crowd. So he ran ahead of the crowd and clambered to a sycamore tree to see Jesus, who was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Hurry down, Zacchaeus, because I must stay in your house today." Zacchaeus hurried down and welcomed him with great joy. All the people who saw it started grumbling. "This man has gone as a guest to the house of a sinner." Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Listen, sir, I will give half my belongings to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, I will pay him back 4 times as much."
All right. So Zacchaeus said he was a little man. He was hiding in a tree. And he was up in a tree just trying to see Jesus. Now, look, we just talked about sometimes your change happens when you do what? You make yourself open to the change, right? So he sees Jesus. He climbs up in a tree just to get a better look. Jesus invites himself to Zacchaeus' house. We don't know if Jesus and Zacchaeus has any prior relationship, but he invites himself to Zacchaeus' house. And now notice what happens. He invites himself to his house. And what do the people start doing? What do the folks who were walking around Jesus start complaining about?
He was hanging out with a tax collector?
Right. Anybody know why that was a bad thing in their eyes?
Because he worked for the Roman government to exact those taxes. And the Romans had them oppressed.
Yep.
Right.
So you hanging out with somebody that's taking our money and giving it to the Romans.
Right. Right.
You ain't come to my house.
And one of the common practices amongst tax collectors was, all right, Reverend Williams, your tax bill $600. I thought it was $5. Nah, $6. I need that.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And so when Reverend Williams give me the $6, I take the $100, put it in my pocket, and then give the $5 to the Romans. And the Romans really didn't care. As long as they got their bread, as long as they got their money at the end of the day, they didn't care how you got it, right?
That's
so
true.
This is not a person people liked, but he goes and Jesus has dinner in his house, and Zacchaeus stands up in the dinner. We don't know what's said. We don't know what the conversation is. Zacchaeus says, "What? I will give away half of my possessions to the poor. And anybody I've cheated, I will repay them 4 times," which is interesting because generally during that time, the law said if somebody wronged you, you're supposed to return it back double, right? If I take $5 from Rev Williams, in order to be properly restore him, I need to give him at least $10 on the back end, right? Give him double for what I took. Zacchaeus said he's gonna give him quadruple for what he took. So if he took $5 from Rev Williams, he gonna give him back 20, right? To show his level of contriteness. All right. Who has Mark 5:15-20?
Okay. Mark 5:15. Then they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon possessed and had the legion, sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened to him who had been demon possessed, and about the swine. Then they began to plead with him to depart from their region. And when he got into the boat, he who had been demon possessed begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis that all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled.
All right, so we got this demon-possessed man. He got so many, they call legion. It's just a bunch of them. And they said he would chain him up. He wouldn't stay chained. And Jesus cast the demons out. Remember, the demons go into the pigs. And so that means Jesus had to be in a pagan area, because Jews wouldn't, Jews didn't deal with pork, swine like that, right? And so he heals the man. Now, I found it interesting. It said when they saw him clothed in his right mind, they were afraid. I thought was interesting, right? They see the man acting right. They're more afraid of him acting right than him acting out. Gotta preach. Okay, let me stop. Anyways, that will preach. I might have to write that down. And some of us know people like that, right?
Yeah.
We're more concerned when they're acting normal than when they're acting crazy.
Yeah. Really get concerned then, huh?
Right. Had an auntie, when she acting normal, we'd be like,
"What's up?
Jesus coming back? What's going on?" If she out here fussing and fighting, cussing everybody out, that's par for the course. We're used to that. Anyways, I like the fact that the man, once he gets healed, he wants to go follow Jesus, right? He wants to go with Jesus. But what does Jesus tell him?
Says, "No, go home."
And he says, "Go and tell what I've done to you." And the text says he goes around to the Decapolis. Now, those of us remember math from way back in the day. Deca,
yep, 10.
Means what?
10, isn't it?
Yep, 10. So there was 10 cities around. He's around in this area just preaching the gospel. I find that interesting because you think about it. His testimony had to be powerful, because you probably have seen this crazy dude, and then to see him walking around acting normal. What is you on, right? Just like if you see somebody and they a bigger person, they lose a bunch of weight. Well, what you do? You did what? You just drunk celery juice. I might have to try that. You're more prone to try it, right? Because you see the results of this person. Like, that's all you did. I have to try that. And so, I like how he was obedient too, right? Most people probably would have pushed to be with Jesus. He said, "No, I'm just going to do what he told me to do." And and I'm thinking about this now. And Rev Williams, you might help me out. Maybe it don't feel like Jesus has any more interaction with this guy after this. So I wonder what happened. I would have loved to have seen a gospel from this guy, right? Like him preaching around and telling his story and just spreading the word. I would love to have seen a gospel from this guy, because he would have a beautiful testimony. That'd be an interesting story. Curious about that.
Amen.
You probably would have had a little trouble because of everybody remembered him as he was. And
but you know what?
I don't know why I thought about this, but I thought about the fact that when found out who Jesus, when Jesus first came back, and people were saying, who is he? He's just a carpenter's son, or
right,
that type of thing.
Well, that's why they say it's hard. A prophet is without honor in his own home, right?
Yeah,
it's hard to go back to the people like, boy, I remember you was right here doing. It's hard to go preach to them people, Now, I think it's a little easier when you've been away. Like for me, it's been easier to go back home to preach because I've been away for a while. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then through the advent of social media, you can see the progress, but from a distance. So when I come home, it's, oh yeah, I'm already established. Whereas, like you said, Brother Watson, this dude, boy, you just filled up with demons 2 weeks ago. And how you gonna try to tell somebody how to live? Right? He was hanging out with dead people. Now you trying to tell folks how to be alive.
That's why I say people never forget the past. What you done in the past, that's past.
The one thing, even my generation on back, can be grateful for is most of the stupid stuff that we did is not on video somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There is no record of it outside of people's
Mhm.
recollection.
You
So,
know, Pastor, when you said that, I think about my children. Sometimes we be talking, they be saying some stuff, and then he say, well, Granny, you act like you never done anything wrong. I say, I have in my past, but why would I sit up and live my past,
Mhm.
now? And why would I sit up and talk about my past, something that I want to forget? But he'll say that all the time. You act like you never done anything wrong because I'm not talking about, the past.
Well, what amazes me though is like you're saying, and we've said it before, is that you do stuff and you just, I don't know why that urge is there to just put everything you do out to the world,
Mhm.
you know.
so I need to do some more research, but my general consensus is just my thought. This is a theory that I'm running with. People have always wanted to be recognized and be famous. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that in us has been in us for a while. It just was a lot harder back in the day, right? You had to work at it. Now you don't have to work at it.
Mhm.
As long as you got one of these or a camera, you can record yourself doing some craziness, post it on the internet, and be at least internet famous.
Yeah, but there were some things that you did that you didn't want auntie or mama or somebody else to know about, and you didn't want you didn't want it to get out.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Like I said, I don't think, but I think the inhibition of, so we've taught people that you don't have to, you don't, I think from my generation, probably on back to yours, you do, how you behave was a reflection of your parents, your grandparents, your family. You know what I'm saying? It was a reflection of that. Even if it wasn't that, it's a reflection of your people as a whole. Right?
Yep.
I don't know. I think we're losing a sense of that. And everybody, and I think it's because here in America, we're very individualists. We're very much we focus on ourselves. So we tend to think that when I do something, it's just about me and not about the community that I'm a part of, right? So that's just my theory. Now I could be wrong, but let's not get into politics. Let's check on down the road. All right, let's look at King Ahab. This is one of my favorite stories. King Ahab, 1 Kings 21, 25 through 29. Who has that for us?
I have it.
Okay.
There was no one else who had devoted himself so completely to doing wrong in the Lord's sight as Ahab, all at the urging of his wife Jezebel. He committed the most shameful sin by worshiping idols, as the Amorites has done, whom the Lord has driven out of the land as the people of Israel advanced. When Elijah finished speaking, Ahab tore his clothes, took them off, and put on sackcloth. He refused food, slept in the sackcloth, and went about glooming and depressed. The Lord said to the prophet Elijah, have you noticed how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Since he has done this, I will not bring disaster on him during his lifetime. It will be during his son's lifetime that I will bring disaster on Ahab's family.
So those of you who read through the Bible, if you know, how many of y'all know the story, know something about King Ahab?
Yeah.
Remember, he had the showdown on Mount Carmel. He had a wife named Jezebel.
Elijah, the prophet.
Right. And so I love this part of the text because even the what's the word I want to use? The author of Kings, before he tells about Ahab's change, like a good storyteller is telling you all the stuff that he's done. Said nobody was as wild as Ahab. But God even turned him when he changed. Look how God relented. I was gonna bring on trouble to him, but I'm gonna not do it in his time, but in his son's time. I thought that was powerful. We always talk about the Old Testament God being all hellfire and brimstone, but we skip over the grace and the mercy that he shows. You get what I'm saying? We oftentimes bypass that as if that doesn't matter, you know? And so
I think we bypass it because we don't see that as the drama in the text. Let me just draw on. That's what's my training.
mm-hmm.
When we say drama, I'm usually looking for the action stuff. When the showdown was, but this verse 29 is the drama in the text.
I feel like the whole story, the Mount Carmel, the drought, all that leads to this.
Right, and that's important.
Right, it's important. But like you said, it's all the back. Like we think Mount Carmel's the high point.
Mm-hmm.
Not. We think that, and we probably see him, Jezebel killing this man as a low point, right? But we still see that God's still a God of justice. And even though that brother died, the guy, you got to read up a little bit. Ahab wants this land because it's close to his palace. He wants to plant a garden. And this guy named Naboth says, I can't give you what's not mine. This land was given from God to my ancestors. So I can't just give you this. And, because, most of us would have told the king, oh, yeah, sure, you can have whatever you want. But Naboth was standing on principle, right?
Yes.
I can't. And Jezebel ends up getting him set up and he dies. He's stoned to death. Like he dies a horrific death because he stands on his principles. And it seems like he got away with it. But God sends the prophet to go tell Ahab, I'm going to get you. And Ahab shows genuine contrition. That's why the author's like, nobody was as bad as this guy. But towards the end, he repented of what he was doing. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's like you're right. That's the drama in the text, the change that God can do, even in the midst of all our foolishness. All right, so we're gonna focus the rest of our time on a very, very familiar passage, Luke 15. Some of you might know this as the story of the prodigal son, the story of the lost son, however you want to do it. All right, so we're gonna walk through this. We're gonna kind of this is probably right up Rev Williams' alley. We're gonna kind of be really digging into what's going on in the text and lifting up some stuff, and then doing some background information because there's very few. This is probably one of the more prominent texts of change in the Bible. Even folks who don't know the Bible have heard of the prodigal son. You know what I'm saying? It's even part of our vernacular, right? Like you've been gone for a while. Oh, look, the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter has returned, right? And so that's where we're going to focus our time in today. All right. Somebody read for us Luke 15, verses 1 through 16. I'm going to take that verse off there. I'll fix that. Go ahead. Luke 15, 1 through 16, 11 through 16.
16.
Yeah, stop at 16. Don't stop at 17. Stop at 16.
11.
11 through 16.
Okay. Oh, okay. Jesus went on to say, there was once a man who had two sons. The younger one said to him, Father, give me my share of the profit now. So the man divided his property between two sons. After a few days, the younger son sold his part of the property and left home with the money. He went to a country, far away, where he wasted his money in reckless living. He spent everything he had. Then a severe famine spread over that country, and he was left without a thing. So he went to work for one of the citizens of that country who sent him out to his farm to take care of his pigs. He wished he could fill himself with the bean pod the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything to eat.
All right, pause right there. Pause right there. Okay, so let's look at what we got here. Jesus is telling this parable. Remember, I always say parables, I stole this from somebody, are little stories with big ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Text says he had how many sons?
2.
And so notice what the younger one asked the dad to give him his half of the estate.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
right? Not when you gone. Now, so let's talk about that. So in Near East tradition, generally the oldest child gets the larger portion of his father's estate. The reason being is the oldest son is kind of required to take care of his parents and to take care of the rest of the family. So that's why they generally get the larger portion of the inheritance. They also get larger level of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine, y'all are older than me. Imagine your children coming to you and saying, "Hey, give me my half of your estate now."
Won't get done.
Let's say you had a bunch to give, Sister Green. Let's say you had 25 million in the bank, and one of your kids is like, "Mom, give me my portion now."
I'll probably say, what?
And knows what the father does.
Yeah.
The father does it. He goes with it.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. He goes with it. And what does the younger son do with it once he gets his stuff?
Foolishness. He did something foolishness.
Hold on, but notice what it says. He took the stuff that the father gave him, the gifts, the stuff that he didn't work for, and did what with it?
Squandered it.
Before that, though, he sold it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He divided his wealth, and he said many days later, the younger son gathered everything and went to a distant country, and there he squandered his estate with wild living. So he sold off everything and was out doing everything he was big and bad enough to do, right? He popping bottles, he's partying, he having himself a grandiose time. And then when then after he spent everything, then a famine came. So he left with plenty of resources, didn't manage his resources well, and then ended up not being prepared when bad times happen. So look what he had to do. He had to basically hire himself out to go work for somebody. And notice what the one job that person gives him to do.
That was the city mission.
Feeding the hogs.
Slopping them hogs.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Red Williams, you were saying something?
That was the city mission of his day.
Right, there you go. So he's out there working with hogs. Why would this
hungry?
Yeah, we get to the hungry part. Why would this be an issue, though? Think about that. Why would this be an issue?
Because he messed up all his money.
No.
The Jews
There you go.
What'd he say?
The hogs of swine was considered as an animal of uncleanness.
Oh, okay.
So he had to do something that was beneath him, in the sense of he had to do something that was outside of his nature, outside of his character. Now we start looking at our own lives. How many of us got stuff that we didn't deserve?
Yes.
Blew it because we didn't have the common sense or the skills or ability to manage what we had. Also what it is. And then in order to survive, we had to do some things that was outside of our character. He was so hungry, he wanted to eat the pods that they would feed the pig. Said nobody would give him anything.
Mm.
So you think about it, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit. We go through the rest of the story. His daddy had stuff. He didn't have to worry about food. He was well taken care of. But notice, I think this the background thing going on in the text. The son thought he was smarter than the daddy.
Mm. Mm.
Right? Think about it. Why else would you ask? Why else would you leave from where you got where everything's being taken care of?
Yeah.
Unless you think you either know better or got a better way.
Mm.
How many times do we get caught up thinking we know better than God, got a better way than God?
Mm.
All right, let's keep going. All right, somebody read. Oh, yeah, 17 through 19. Oh, too much. Okay, there we go.
17 through 20.
No, stop at 19. Stop at 19.
And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And that's a little drama there, that last. Right. Make me as one of thy hired servants.
So at some point in time, I'm pretty sure looking at them pies they were feeding the hog, he realized I truly hit rock bottom.
For sure.
And so look at his thinking. He said, don't the servants in my daddy's house have bread to spare? And I'm sitting up here hungry. That means if the servants had bread to spare, you know, as a son,
you have it.
He had it, right?
Mm-hmm. He just had to get out there and see.
You know, so what's the old saying? You don't miss your well till your water run dry.
Water run dry.
And so now, but I want you to pay attention to what happens. He gets in his head to do what? I'm gonna go back and notice.
Apologize.
Yes, but notice his apology though.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we apologize, but we don't do it properly, if that makes any sense. Like we apologize, but you ever get one of those apologies where it's like, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have did X. It's not an apology. Right? Look how he owns up to what he did. Father, I have sinned against heaven. First, recognizing that sin starts with God. When we sin, we sin against God first, right? And your sight. And realizes, he said, I'm not even, because I took what was not mine and then blew it. I don't even deserve to be called your son. I'll just be one of your hired servants.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep going. Somebody read 20 through 24 for us.
So he set out and came to his father. But when he was still a long ways off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf, slaughter it, and let's eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And they began to celebrate.
All right. Now, I think most of us have children on here, or if you don't have children, you have young people that you probably interact with. If you gave your child their inheritance before you died, and they blew it, and you see them coming up the road looking rough, you know, would your reaction initially be, oh, look at my baby, I love him so much? Or you'd be like, I tried to told you. But notice what happens. father sees him from far off. And I think that's the part we skip over in the back part 20, where he says what? And felt compassion for him.
And it also, to me, it implies I've taught that when he sees him afar off, his heart was so heavy and hurting. He was looking for him. He was expecting him to come back.
I'm with you on that. I can just imagine this father. He's working and tilling, but he's always got an eye up the road, seeing if he see a figure that look like his son from a distance. And you know, a parent can recognize their child. I tell the story. I might have told it before. My brother was flying into San Diego, and my mom was in town, and I hadn't told my mom he was coming. I said, "Mom, ride me. I got to pick my friend up from the airport." She's like, "All right, come on." And so we ride, and she said, "Where your friend is?" "I don't know. Look around, see if you see anybody. Look for me." And she saw my brother like 50 feet away. It's getting dark, but she knew her child. She's like, "My baby!" Went running to her. You know, but she knew her child in the dim light, even at a distance. She saw that figure and knew it was Corey. And so, I'm sorry, what did you say, Brother Wise?
No. Go ahead on.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. So I'm with Rem Williams. He might have always had an eye out to the distance, looking, hoping this child would come back, right? Yep. The text says he felt compassion for him. And the son apologizes. "Father, I've sinned against you and in your sight. No one was ever be called your son." But notice what the father does. You notice he doesn't even engage him, right? He doesn't even engage the question, the statement that he's made. Because he's already looked past that.
Why don't you preach?
That's done. I ain't even worried about, let that go. And not only does he this is what, and I like that he doesn't engage it, because look what he says to his slaves. "Quickly, bring him a robe, put a ring on his feet, put sandals on his feet." These were important because in Near Eastern time, these were the signs of somebody who was taken care of. That makes any sense, right? You know, slaves didn't wear fancy robes. Why they need one? They out doing manual labor, right? Put a ring on his finger, the signet ring, the family ring, showing that he was his son. And slaves walked around barefoot, put shoes on his feet. He didn't engage him. He was showing him that he was reinstating him back in full sonship. You're not coming back on punishment. You're not coming back halfway. I'm restoring you right back to where you were when you left.
Pastor, is it safe to say that he has forgiven his son?
Yeah. But notice, he didn't say it with words. He said it with actions.
Said it with actions.
Said it with action.
With action, yeah.
Right? And then he says what? "Bring the fattened calf, slaughter it, let's eat and celebrate." Look at verse 24. For this son of mine was dead, but has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And they begin to celebrate. Now, we usually stop here, but I want to keep going because the back part to me,
that other son.
Yeah, the back part to me is where a lot of us live in. Okay, let's be honest. A lot of us is older boy. So let's read 25 through 32, somebody.
32.
Yep, start at verse 25 on down to verse 32.
Okay, in the meantime, go ahead on.
Now his oldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf." But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, "Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandments at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots. You killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found.
All right. Like I said, we usually stop at verse 24, but verse 25 is where a lot of us live. 25 through 32 is where a lot of us own some real estate. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of us, let's just say in the family dynamic, your younger sibling that went off or your other sibling went off and blew everything. And you've been the one taking care of mama. You've been the one holding down the house. You've been the one keeping things together. And then this joker runs back and mama and them follow on, oh, my baby's back. Some of us would have an attitude. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
Some of us would have a whole attitude.
Yes. Yes.
Now, let's ask the question. Before we start digging into it, do you think the brother was right to be in his feelings, to have an attitude?
I think so.
Okay.
To question it, yes.
I definitely understand the brother, the older brother.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been in both sides of this. I've been the older brother and the younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about the younger brother was coming back expecting to receive kind of what he got from the older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because he's like, I served you for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
I was here. I didn't run off. I did what you're supposed to do. That other boy of yours went and blew all your money on strippers and everything else. But I did what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't celebrate me.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up to church every Sunday. I was here. I did what I was supposed to do, and you never celebrated me.
Mm-hmm.
How often are we frustrated because our efforts aren't recognized?
Mm-hmm.
How often are we ready to quit, throw in the towel? Look, he didn't want to go into the party
Mm-hmm.
because he felt like his efforts were not recognized. Shouldn't I be celebrated for doing the right thing? How many of us get frustrated when our good deeds go unnoticed? How many of us? Go ahead.
No, I'm going to go back just a little bit.
Go ahead.
If you look at it, and I think you might have said it, or I can't remember, but a parent knows their child and knows the character of the child. And so I can't believe that this is just something that the younger son all of a sudden just decided, well, I think I'm going to do this. And so it didn't surprise the father that he did it, but he was hoping he didn't.
Right.
But the brother, of course, you don't see that part. You just, like you said, you're the one out there that's in the sun doing everything and all the other stuff, and you haven't even, apparently, the dad hasn't even said, you're doing a good job. I appreciate it, that type of thing. So, yeah.
I think that's why the Bible reminds us not to get weary and well doing. Because where the older brother is wrong, Is he wrong for having these feelings? I don't think so. Where I think he's wrong is not understanding that he's missing the bigger picture. Yeah, it sucks to not be recognized now, but he has to understand that his recognition, his recognition is going to come. It just may not come now. And I think that's how some of us have to keep in mind. We can't do things, even in, especially those of us who are in professional ministry. I'll say it that way. All of us are in ministry, but those of us who are ministry is our number one profession. We can't serve better or worse because people don't pat us on the back and tell us we're doing a good job. Now, we appreciate it, but you get what I'm saying? If your only reason for serving is to get a pat on the back and somebody do a good job, you're missing the point of service.
Mm-hmm. If you're doing it from your heart, you're going to get the reward. You're going to get the reward.
And let me say this, I'm not saying, but let me say this. I'm not saying that to say we shouldn't tell people they're doing a good job. We should not communicate to folks.
I was ringing while I was talking.
Oh.
Doing it from your heart, your reward will come.
Right.
It will come. It may not be when you want it, but it's going to come. But when you're doing it for a show or whatever, it's just between you and whoever,
Right.
That's your reward there.
Right. All right. So as we close, I thought this was going to be short, but we're right on target. Amen. As we close, let us think about that change is feasible for all of us. All of us have the ability and the aptitude to change. The question is, as you see here, are we going to get in our mind to make the change? And change is a process. Change is a very slow process. And we need to not get weary in the process. Do you get what I'm saying? If I'm stepping on your sermon, Rev. Williams, I apologize. But that's the way life works. For those of us who have changed, we know it's been a process, and it's still an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all we have. Those of you watching online, God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace.